how into the numbers side of the business are you? I've had, some managers that come in and just feel like that they can run it day to day and not even know what the food cost is, alcohol costs, etc. How familiar are you with, calculating those things and, having various, budget goals and things of that nature?
I operate better when you give me a budget.
Mm-hmm.
You tell me this is what I need to be able to spend on a monthly basis, and I'll stay within that budget.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of a couple different answers I could give you. So my experience with doing numbers, that's what I did for Fridays.
Mm-hmm.
I was a numbers guy. Everything that we did was based off of numbers. Understanding that without the sales, you can't do much. You're heavily restricted without the sales coming in. So I'm well versed in calculating costs and things of that nature. The other, I lost my train of thought.
We were talking about budgets and numbers.
Yes, budgets. That's right. And that was one of the small issues that I did have with McCrae's. They didn't provide a budget, and I was asking for a budget. I said, "Listen, I'll keep it consistent to the best of my ability, but I need to know what kind of budget we're working with." They had the numbers game was a little bit of a, for lack of a better term, secretive. Unless you were a DO or higher, they kept that very close to the heart. But with Fridays, I was full-fledged, fully involved, all numbers on the plate. This is what you need to be operating within. This is where we need to be, so on and so forth. So I'm familiar with both sides of the equation.
Who was your direct go-to at McCrae's? Was it a director of operations, an owner? Or?
Director of operations.
Okay, gotcha.
The owner was also very involved, but my direct report was the DO.
Okay, gotcha. And you were there, I guess, for almost 2 years. At McCrae's.
No, I was there for a year.
For 1 year. Yeah. Okay. And when exactly did you leave? Because I see it's to 2021. It seems like it was very recent.
Last week.
Okay, gotcha.
Last week. Mm-hmm.
Did you give them a notice?
No, they let me go.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Because of the finances.
Okay. And they didn't give you any type of notice, huh?
Of course not.
Oh, hate to hear that. And so, what are you looking for in a position right now? Because I know you've, kind of played several roles from GM to assistant GM, beverage manager. Right now, what exactly are you looking for it to be able to be a long-term position for you?
I'm a leader at heart. I won't feel comfortable unless I'm in a leadership position, I think. And that's just my own thing, I suppose. I'd like to be able to control what needs to be controlled. I like to be able to contribute, and if there's something that needs to be corrected, I want to have some kind of impact on that. And the best way to do that is in some form of a leadership position. So the short answer to your question is I think I'd like to be in some kind of a leadership position, depending on what you have available.
Okay. What would you say as far as management, or your top 3 strengths?
My top 3 strengths in management are peopling, if you will, code shifting, being able to speak to anybody. A mess makes me crazy. It's very difficult to operate in a chaotic environment. And I guess the third one would be communication, for sure. Communication, not just with the those above me, but those that report to me as well.
Okay.
So yeah, those are definitely my top 3.
And what do you think is just maybe one thing that you could work on or be better at?
The one thing that I really need to get better at is caring a little too much to a fault, if that makes sense. This is going to sound cliche. It's always business. It's always business. Always. And I get it. I 100% get it. But I'm a very compassionate person as well. So people's feelings matter to me. And sometimes people's feelings matter a little bit too much to me.
What's your approach to delegating employees? Like, how do you ensure that tasks are carried out to completion?
It's a very easy formula. You delegate, you give the task, explain how the task is done, ask them to repeat the task back to you, make sure that they understand, allow them time to complete the task in the allotted time frame that you've given them or laid forth for them, and then once that time frame is completed, you follow up. And that's arguably the most important part of it, is the follow up, making sure that, making sure that everything is being done the way it's supposed to be done and in the time that it's supposed to be done.
Absolutely. How do you handle disgruntled staff?
It depends on what they're disgruntled about, I suppose. Some disciplinary action requires the head on the stake method. Other times it's a behind closed door. Most times it's a behind closed doors conversation. Never been a fan of creating a big scene in front of everybody and all of that. That's ridiculous. I think that's not only immature, but it's completely damaging to the image of the business that you're working in. Most situations need to be handled behind closed doors in a timely fashion. And again, the issue dictates, what that timely fashion is. It's something that needs to be handled immediately, or if it's something that can wait till the crowd dies down or the end of the shift or whatever the case may be. So,
okay.
But in any event, it gets addressed, and whatever the issue is, it has to be addressed at some point.
Okay. What's your process to ensure that overpouring, theft, and waste is kept to a minimum?
There's a couple of different things that can be done. Tactics that I've used in the past are mandatory pour testing, mandatory jigger use. I've been in places that utilize the regulated pourers. Glassware with certain markings on them, things of that nature. Beyond that, as far as the technical piece, as far as bartenders physically giving product away, that's just an observation piece. That's an observation you got to watch. You got to make sure that you're aware of what you're watching.
Right. Okay. And as we know that, working in the hospitality industry and managing restaurants can be very stressful. How do you relieve stress?
My kids are definitely my stress relief. My kids and my wife, absolutely. Outside of that,
sounds like you got a good home life.
Yeah, it definitely. It's not perfect by any means, but it's supportive for the world. Outside of that, if they start getting on my nerves, well, nothing like a good bottle of Jameson and some time.
I know that's right.
The reality of the situation is, being in the industry that we're in, there's not a whole lot of time to do a whole lot of self stuff, especially with my personal life. I don't have a lot of me time, so I find my solace in other ways, and it's usually playing with my kids, and enjoying my days off and hanging out with the missus. Even for just last night, we just sat and, while the kids were asleep, sat and watched a movie. Had a couple of drinks, a couple of beers, and just hung on out. That's really, at this stage in the game, for me, it's breathing and love. That's all I need. And
you pretty much would be interested in any management position?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. You think so?
I'm positive so.
Okay.
Yes, I would definitely be interested in that position.
All right. All right. So, how much do you know about me and my restaurants and my company?
Not a whole lot. I am familiar with members only. Been there a couple times. Outside of that, in all honesty, I'm not very familiar with the concept.
Okay.
Outside of what I've learned from Amos.
Okay. So I own a company called Dillard Hospitality Group. My name is Michelle Dillard. I go by Snoop. And I own 5 restaurants, 3 salon suites. The Escobar brand, which I co-own with the rapper 2 Chainz. So we've got 3 Escobar locations here in the city of Atlanta. One is actually in Morrow, Georgia, not too far from that Fridays that you were at for several years. We've got one downtown in the Castleberry Hills area. And then we have, one that's seafood based called Esco Seafood, which is right on Edgewood, which we opened in December. And then we've also got members only restaurant, and then I have Crave restaurant, which is in Little 5 Points. So I've been in the hospitality industry, I guess for about the past 10 years heavy. Before then, I opened up my first spot when I was 24. Really didn't know what I was doing. It wasn't open long at all. It was a good learning lesson, and several years later, I did a couple other businesses in between then, and then several years later, I got my feet back in the game. Did you ever hear of a spot called the Hookah Hideaway?
Yes.
So I used to own the Hookah Hideaway, as well. I had that spot for about 5 years. Decided to voluntarily close it. It's just the neighborhood was getting bad. It was, starting to get a negative connotation. So ended up closing that one. And have been very successful, with the other restaurants, that I've done since then. So we also have Dillard Hospitality Group. We've got our corporate office, which consists of my director of operations, our office manager. We've got one GM that we're going to be moving up into our food and beverage director within the next couple of months. So we've got quite a bit of help. We try to make sure that all of our managers can have a good quality of life. I like to work with people that are going to be happy. That's very important, so that you've got people coming to work, with good attitudes, and wanting to see the business, thrive and be successful. We're always, looking for good talent, to come in. Of course, with having that many businesses, there are generally a position that needs to be filled, or maybe someone that we just want to get rid of. Our general managers normally do stay around for a good amount of time, as do most of our employees. Most of our employees, if they do leave, it's because they've been terminated. That's pretty much what we have going on. Do you have any questions for me at this point?
What drove you to the industry, to the restaurant industry?
Well, at first it was, I ended up doing a calendar. I used to manage models and things of that nature. So I did a calendar for them, and I was trying to promote and sell the calendar. So I got into promoting. Okay. And I've just always been, like you say yourself, a leader, and wanting to lead from the top and be at the top. And so with promoting at different venues, I then would start speaking with owners and things of that nature, and kind of wanted to get into ownership myself. And when I first did it, it was just an epic fail. I thought I would never, ever get back into it again. And then I moved here to Atlanta, and just seen a lot of the opportunity here, and started getting into it and just completely loved it. I love creating venues and spaces where people can come and just release, Life is hard, so... And, I'm the type, I party at all of my venues. I'm a totally different person outside of work. But during the work, during the day, and when it's time to get the business done, I'm 100%, business, oriented. But, I do like to hang and party and things of that nature myself as well. So all of those things combined really, led me to where I am.
Understood.
Mm-hmm. So, Alan, pretty much from here, what we do, if I decide to move you on to the second round, to the second phase of interviewing, pretty much what will happen is we would get your references. So we would ask you for 3 references. We would check those. We would have you do a site visit with one of our more tenured GMs, which is basically just kind of going to the site, interviewing with them, and then kind of just not necessarily working in there for a couple hours, but just kind of being there, and and just kind of letting us know, hey, this is what I saw, this is what I would change, this is what was done good. And it just kind of gives me an idea, because a lot of times people can interview well, or they don't interview so well. However, they are really good at that position, or maybe not so good at it, and that would just kind of give me a little window of opportunity to be able to see what you're like, as far as hands-on. And then after that, if everything went well, we would be able to, make you an offer for employment. Alrighty. Well, I think those are all of the questions that I have for you, Alan. I appreciate your time today, and
I appreciate your time.
Good luck to you, okay? Nice to officially meet you. How's your day going so far?
It's good. It's good. And yourself?
Doing pretty good. So tell me a little bit about yourself, Vic.
Born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. Just been working, grinding my whole life. Joined the military early on. Went to school for 2 years afterwards, and then it wasn't right for me. So then I decided to do the hospitality industry.
What made you want to get into hospitality?
Well, I feel like ownership of a club eventually will be like something I want to do. I've always been in the service with the military as well, so that's why.
Okay, all right. So you used to be at Thrive Restaurant.
Yes.
I actually used to throw parties there, probably about 8 years ago.
With Trimmy.
Yes, Trimmy was there.
Yes.
Yep. So tell me a little bit about your experience at Thrive.
Started as an SA, worked my way up to bartending, then management. It was a good time, but the pay just wasn't enough, so I had to figure something else out.
What were some of your responsibilities there?
Pretty much I ran the whole front of the house. Everything from the bar to the staff to handling customers, things like that. Even sometimes back of the house when the kitchen manager was busy, I would have to handle that as well.
What were some of the things that you feel like you learned or took away from that position?
Patience, working with people. Because with the military, you can snap and tell people what to do. But working with civilians, you have another level of patience that I had to learn at that point. So definitely.
And so now you're with us at Dillard Hospitality Group. Now you started at Esco South, right?
Yes.
Okay. And what position did you initially have there?
Bar backing.
Okay. And tell me a little bit about how you got into what we have you doing now at the door.
I kind of just fell into everything. I pretty much made myself a master key for everything. So whatever needed to be done, even at Esco South, when they needed to learn how to make hookahs, I was teaching them how to make hookahs. Things with the food, running food. But as far as things at members only, I was bar backing.
What are your goals for this year?
As far as personal, business, working?
Both.
All right. So personal goals, I'm trying to acquire another property. Within the next 6 months, my VA loan will be, I'll be able to use it again. And, as far as with the company, just moving up.
You have any kids?
Negative.
You said that like you don't want any.
No offense.
Everybody doesn't always have the opportunity to sit in front of the owner. And so now that, you do have that, is there anything that you'd like to communicate to me or bring to my attention or anything like that?
Anything to bring to your attention. I feel like there's an efficiency that we could work on as far as at members only, as far as bringing in the staff and being more on them as far as hey, make sure you're doing this, make sure you're doing that. Running the bottles, being enthusiastic with the bottles, or because you get some girls that just do a little energy. High energy, everybody's happy. We can sell more, we can make more.
All right, Vic, I really don't have just a whole lot of questions for you, and I'm not going to sit here and make any up.
Okay.
Time is money. I really just wanted to have the opportunity to meet you. I've heard quite a few good things from you, on starting from my daughter all the way, up to Q, Bentley, Amos, etc. And so they have recommended you to possibly move into management, and before I've made a decision, because of course every position that you've had, I've okayed it, but when it comes to management, I do like to kind of sit down and have a formal conversation.
Yes.
With whoever is going to be in a management position on a team. And so I definitely wanted to do that with you. I commend you on being able to, I don't think we've ever had anybody that's gone from bar back to management. So I commend you on, being able to do that, and, just playing your part. I think you're a good example of, if you come in and, you've got integrity and you're reliable, and really dedicated to what you're doing, then you can move up, in a company as of such. So, good luck to you. I'll be communicating with Bentley today, and we'll go from there, okay?
Okay.
All right. Thank you for coming in. I appreciate you being on time, and nice to officially meet you.
Likewise.
All right. Have a good one. Keep up the good work. All right, guys. So I'll let you all join me today on 2 interviews that I had with my company. So I don't always get to interview any and everybody that works for us here at Dillard Hospitality Group, but I do like to make sure that I do interview any potential managers, any of the restaurant managers, assistant GMs, bar managers, general managers, and anybody that works for my corporate company, Dillard Hospitality Group. So today I actually interviewed a potential manager that may be placed at one of our companies. And as you see, that interview lasted much longer than the second interview. Reason for being such is, number one, 2021. The second interview, that was actually an internal interview. So already was kind of a little bit familiar with the second person that I interviewed, but just needed to sit down with him and talk to him a little bit more face to face. I had seen him before, but honestly did not really even recall who he was. Of course, I've seen his name, I've seen his reports, but wanted to be able to put a face, with a name. We're at the point now where we have almost 300 employees, and so it used to be I could go into my businesses and know almost any and everybody that works there, and that's just not the case anymore. And hey, I'm not mad at it. It's hard to get to know over 300 people. And also, when you're trying to get to a point, when you have so many businesses and you want to have a life outside of those, it's just impossible to be able to do that. So was definitely happy to be able to sit down with that young man. As you guys heard, he came in as a barback and is now going to potentially move into management. So kudos to him, and I think it just also speaks to the opportunities that we have here at Dillard Hospitality Group. And if you come in and you've got good integrity and you work hard and really are a reliable person and an asset to the team, you can definitely meet your personal and financial goals by working here with us and moving up the ladder. Back to the first interview that I had, I thought that guy also has a wealth of experience. It's important when you're interviewing somebody to pay attention to how many jobs they've worked, if they bounce around a lot, what it is that they're looking for. You notice that I always ask people during interviews, what are your goals? What is the perfect position for you? What's the dream position for you? Because we have to kind of marry into a relationship that's going to be beneficial for both parties. It takes a lot of time, energy, and money to train people, and so you don't want to bring somebody on and then 2 months later they're looking for something else, or 2 months later I'm looking for someone else because I'm not satisfied with them in that position. So I hope you guys were able to learn something by some of the questions that I asked during my interview process. One thing to keep in mind, whether you're interviewing somebody or whether someone is interviewing you, of course always have that professional business casual look. Always bring your resume to the interview, and always try to show up on time. And if you're interviewing for a higher level management position, on time is 10 minutes or more before that set interview time. I'm always looking at a potential general manager with my eyebrow raised. If they're coming in, if the interview is at 11 and they're coming in at 10:58 or 10:59, because you want somebody that's going to be extremely organized. That is whoever you have running your business really, has, the opportunity to help you make it successful or not so successful, because they are the person in charge that's really running the show and that's managing your staff. So that person is so important. And as you guys see, we do more than just one interview, because, somebody can come in and fool you one time. It's hard to fool somebody 3 times. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Make sure you follow me on Instagram at WhoIsSnoop, and make sure you go to my website, WhoIsSnoop.com, so you can read a little bit more about my story. My mentorship program will be launching in February, so stay tuned for that, and everything that we have to offer in 2021.